over our air compartment, which contains our space saver, 2-bottle fuel station, our storage area, and our technical rescue air cart. In addition to the mechanical parts of this compartment, we also have a low pressure air line, which is operated by the controls here in the air system. We are in the process of changing out this coupling here to a Paratech fitting, which means any air tool we have, from an air chisel, airbag, or even our Excalibur tools, can use this fitting. The high pressure fitting, this is solely designed to be used with our technical rescue air cart, and we'll go over the details with its connection and operation aspects. And as we mentioned in the walk around, we still have the electrical, your common electrical junction box. So let's talk about the air fill station real quick. The process of doing the air fill is we do have a cascade system log that contains our various entries as we're filling up bottles, as well as our do not fill policy. If we have a bottle that meets any of these criteria, we will not fill it. But this is kept here on the truck, and it's to be used while we're filling air bottles, whether it's our bottles or mutual aid apartments bottles. We follow those policies. So the air system itself is pretty easy to use. As I mentioned during the walk around, we have 4 6,000 PSI bottles on top of the truck, and here are the banks for that, where we can open these up to get supplied air from there. And by simply opening it up, it opens up from bank 1 and tells us what the pressure we have. Up high, we have the SCBA fill shutoff. This is what we use to actually fill SCBA bottles, which I'll demonstrate here in a second. The high pressure reel, which this reel here is what pressure is going to the high pressure line. It is based off of whatever is in the system. The low pressure reel in blue has its own regulator and it's on off. So we can actually control it by turning it on. And these knobs here, you have to press in to actuate. So we actually can press in and regulate our low pressure line, and it's sending air to the low pressure line here from this reel here. With the fill ports here, this is what we will use to fill the cascade system up, and we simply will pull the line off of the SCBA room wall, pull it over, and it's a quick connect into, turn on the cascade or the compressor system in the SCBA room. We'll fill our bottles. This system is solely a fill station, not a compressor. This does not make air, it just puts air into bottles. So to go through the bottle fill process is pretty simple. If you are unsure of things, there are directions here on the wall of the fill station. But the first process is obviously to open up the blast chamber by turning the handle, and here we have 2 fill ports. We have 2 bottles here that are in the need of filling. Now that our bottles are ready to be filled, but just as a reminder, we need to log our bottle information with our bottle number and our hydrostatic test date, which is stamped on the side of the bottles. If it don't have a hydrostatic test date, you can use the manufacturing date on the bottle within 5 years. So bottles are open, the bleed off valves are closed, the fill valves here are open. All you simply do now is you close the blast chamber, push this down and lock it. If you do not have this closed, you cannot operate the fill station. At this point, we've opened up our bank we want to use to fill from. Here is our SCBA fill, which is showing what our pressure is. And from this point, we simply open up the SCBA fill valve, and slowly the needle starts to move. As a reminder, we don't want to fill too fast for the heat. And as this gauge here goes and equalizes, it's obviously going to equalize to the bottle we have here and to our regulator. When it equalizes, we can simply shut the fill bank. We can open the next fill bank. And as you see, the master regulator will go to what it's set at here, 4,500. If it's not, we can obviously adjust it here with this gauge. And again, we push in and turn. And as you notice, I kept the fill valve open during that transition, so it allows that transition of fill. And here, we're not quite getting to 4,500, so we can increase our regulator pressure. And we're close to that anyway on our number 2 bank. So we'll call it complete. Cut off that bank. Cut off the fill bank. At this point, we can open our blast door. From here, you'll simply turn the bottles off, as we normally do in our process. Turn these valves off, and then bleed from the system, okay? Again, as you're filling, if you open this blast door up, it stops that fill process as well. So during your work shifts, definitely come out here, put your hands on it, because you're not going to understand it until you put your hands on and fill some bottles. But again, it's pretty simple process. Moving on to the Technical Rescue air cart. We have recently gone through and have changed some couplings out, some fittings for the better use or the more number of uses we can have for it. The basic setup of this, it comes obviously strapped in this cart here. We can also make it portable. The cart itself is divided up in 2 sections. You have a yellow side, which is the respirator side, and we'll use this for the confined space system we'll show you in another session. And the blue side is our air tool side. These couplings here can fit our air tools, and like the airline, we're in the process of changing these couplings out here to a Paratech fitting, which means we can use our Paratech systems for trench rescue, our air gun, our airbags, or even our standard air guns or air chisels, Excalibur tools will also fit that. How this system works, we keep this knob here in air sources common. Okay, this lever here turns, 90 degrees here. It can either be an air sources isolated or air source common. We keep it in air source common. What this means, air systems coming in, whether it's coming in from the top via the high pressure line here, and just simply screws into the top like a regular SCBA fitting, like so. You can just screw down into here. So air is coming from the high pressure side, or we can use bottled air. If wherever our air system is, and air source common is going to both sides. Okay, that's the concept we have for our air cart. When we screw this down to power up the high pressure system, very similar to the fill station, we come back to our controls here, high pressure reel. We simply open it up, okay? And then we choose a bank we want to use for our air supply, and we open that bank up, okay? So we've charged this line. We have air coming through the high pressure line to here, and what we will do at this point, the fill valve, we'll simply open this up, and you'll hear some bells and whistles into the system. If it wasn't already charged, we actually already had pressure in the system here, but you actually have a low pressure bell and whistle when this system gets low. So at this point here, as you can see on the regulator, air source is common. We have pressure going to both sides of the tools. A question was asked, if we're using this system here and we go to the bottles, what's that process? You want to keep these bottles off in the event you run out of air, whether from a bank, from the system, or if you have a problem with the airline, it'll give you a low pressure alarm. If you turn these bottles on and you lose pressure on here, you're not going to know you have an air system issue. So high pressure is coming in, charge our system. At this point, we can take an air line and simply plug into our system. This is our standard air tool line for our air chisel, and as you can see, simply plugs into the system here. And at this point, we have a regulator that's controlled where we can charge this particular side here to our whatever pressure we want to use. And keep in mind, using this air cart, we can use high pressure systems off of this, and we can also use low pressure systems. If we're using a high pressure, say if we're using our high pressure air gun or Paratech air gun, and say we're operating it at 150 PSI. So if we want to use a low pressure system while we're using our high pressure system, we also have a coupling down here that we can put in and charge, and we have its own regulator control here where we can go to a lower PSI. So with this Technical Rescue air cart, we can use high pressure system tools, low pressure system tools, as well as our breathing air system on the yellow side. One thing to keep in mind, if we're not using the high pressure reel, say we're too far away for the reel to reach, and if we're using the bottles, what we simply do at this point, so we'll take this high pressure reel out of the equation. Okay, so it's no longer charged up. If we charge our bottle, the unique thing with this air cart is we can turn this bottle on here. It charges the system as this does. When we use a tool, when this bottle runs low, you simply come to the other bottle over here and you can turn it on, and it will not equalize these bottles. There's a check valve in this cart that prevents these bottles from equalizing. That's a unique feature with this air cart. Very common for us. We typically don't turn two bottles on at one time connected to a system because they equalize. That will not happen here. What that allows us to do is charge the system up. When we get this system charged, we come back to this system, turn this bottle off, bleed it off, change that bottle out while there's still continuous air on the other side. Obviously, this can be carted around as long as it'll reach here, but even if not, if we're having to use this without the air reel, having extra bottles, the screw-on style bottles is what's required for this cart. Also, here in the near future, you're going to see these 30-minute bottles replaced with 60-minute bottles, which will increase our tool time and our breathing air time on our supplied airline systems. That concludes our setup of our air cart or in our air system, airfield system. Again, put your hands on this, use this as a tutorial, put your hands on it, understand the concepts of it. And again, if you have any questions, let me know, let the shift personnel know, they can walk you through it as well.